Just tell me when.
Sure. All right. We are all set.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started then.
Yeah,
Uh,
I would suggest maybe moving over here because I'm maxing out the speaker.
okay, we ready to go? Okay, we shall get going. I'm Dave, K1 Triple T, here today to give a quick overview of how my station is used for remote operation and some of the history of it and things like that today. We're going to go through a bunch of these slides in the beginning pretty quick. You can download this this afternoon. I'll have it on my website updated. There's a slightly older version there right now. Just look down the left side of the website, and there'll be a link to the PDF for all the slides. Yep. Oh, there we go. Okay, this is an overview of the station, obviously. Pretty much what it looks like today out there, I think. We got a good amount of snow down here and a little bit more last night. Some of the things we're going to look at is just give a quick overview of the hardware, go through the software that we use for the remote access, so a little bit about networking, which I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, but it has some notes in there that you might be interested in. And then a little bit about the experience of users that come in to use the station remotely. I started doing the remote operation mostly because I wanted to help out a few of my friends that lived down in New York City in apartments, didn't have any antennas. So that was the initial reason to get into setting up the remote operation. I One of my goals on it was not to require anybody to buy any hardware. I know there's hardware based remote operating setups and things like that I didn't want anybody to have to go out and buy you know remote boxes, and I didn't want to have to buy remote boxes for everything. And since then, we've pretty much gone to doing it. It's open for remote users basically 24/7, except mostly on weekends when we have multi-op or even single-op contests now because of all the COVID stuff. Uh, an example of what we can do with remote operation in 2020, when we were really just getting started for the multi operations, we were able to get over 6,500 queues, and we've pretty much duplicated that in the recent ARRL DXCW. We had over 7,000 contacts in that one. A quick overview of hardware. Of course, you can't have a ham presentation without some antennas. So that's a picture of the 40-meter tower right now. Two 4-element. Whoops, no, that's not 40 meters. Whichever. It's 20 meters. We'll go on the outside and then the inside. Big pictures of towers. Got to have some of them. The little one down on the bottom right is the receive only antennas, all the beverages that come into that one spot and get switched. The upper right's an 80-meter foursquare. And this is, I skip over this pretty quick sometimes, but this is what really made the 24/7 operation possible. This is the entrance box with all of the lightning arresters and connections, and everything comes into this. Then the cables go up to the top and back into the house above the ceiling in the shack room. This is the other side of the wall, just inside. All the silver boxes up there are the RCS 8Vs and RCS 10s, I think, are the other ones. and that's just switching for the receive-only antennas. I can take with the two manual switches there in the bottom right and send them to an SO2R station, or flip the two switches and 80 and 160 go to their own single band stations. Before setting everything up for remote overview, this was the old way I was doing SO2R on the left, where you'd have all the rotor control boxes stacked up, and it was even harder before I switched to the green heron ones, because the Yaesu boxes are sloped and you couldn't stack them very well. The white boxes with all the red buttons on the tops are antenna switches, controlling remote boxes out on the towers, or some switches that are inside. Those boxes I designed the circuit for it and got somebody to build them for me in bulk. So they're kind of unique. But right now, all of those boxes are now switched over to use the Green Heron software and their wireless boxes. Yeah, a couple of the server rack that's got some. This was when I had a couple of skimmers running here for RIDI and for CW. The typical single band station. Right now we're on FT2000s. The amps we've got are either the Command HF2500s or ACOM 2000s, or now we've got the PGXL, which is now on this station. Instead of having two ACOMs up here, there's one cute little PGXL box that does both radios, switches back and forth, and it's a neat little box. But this one on the right is the SO2R stations. There's two radios down underneath, two amps up above, one computer controlling the whole thing. And the box, or the screen on the left, is actually a touch screen that we can use for controlling the antennas. Right now it's only set for one radio, but we can divide the screen in half and have two different copies of the Green Heron software. So you got left radio on the left side, right radio on the right. VHF station kind of off on the side. It gets used for remote operation occasionally, but I don't have any amplifiers or anything on that. With all this hardware inside and the software that doesn't really like getting shut off unexpectedly, I've got everything is on UPSs in here except the lights and the single band amplifiers. I've got 13 or 1500 VA units for each of the single band stations, and a big 3000 VA ones down in the crawl space under the shack that handles the SO2R station, the VHF, my personal computer, and the server rack is all in that one UPS that's down underneath, and that's a heavy one. It's I forget how many of those batteries are in there, but it's a bunch of them. Then also I got for the SO2R amp, either running the 2 amps or single amp, is a 20 amp 240 volt UPS that weighs about, I don't know, 140, 150 pounds. And then, of course, since batteries in the UPSs are really only meant to hold it over until you can shut off the computer or something else, I have an 18 kW generator right outside the shack that transfers over automatically within probably about 5 seconds or so if the power goes off. Okay, more hardware on the right, even though we're going to talk a little bit about software here. Antenna and rotor control. I decided to go with the Green Heron stuff. Uh, it's very customizable. They have wireless control boards that happen to just fit very nicely into those white boxes that I have for the antenna switching. So you can take and drop one of those boards in there, rewire the same cables that are used for the manual switches, and control it remotely from these switch panels here that you build, just setting up the devices in the Green Heron software. Very flexible, works very nicely. I did have one problem with it. Is it happened their wireless stuff uses the same frequencies as the Wi-Fi channel 1. If anybody's set up Wi-Fi and you get to pick the different channels, Wi-Fi channel 1 will interfere with the Green Heron wireless controls. And it's fairly intuitive. I don't have too much trouble teaching new operators how to control stuff using it. The software for the radio, N1MM Plus is the logger we're using now, and it provides basic frequency and mode control for the radios. You can program some buttons for sending cat commands to the radios. That's how I started doing some of that, but it's kind of limited, and you can't really bring back any data from the radio for display. So you don't get any feedback. Like if you select a beverage antenna, the only feedback you would get is the change in the audio, how it sounds. So I tried a bunch of the different manufacturers' software. The Yaesu has a radio control app. There's a couple other freeware or shareware type programs. None of them seem to be very useful for us. They take up a lot of the screen space. They do a lot of things to the radio that N1MM doesn't like, and they don't really handle the audio very well. So my solution for this, since my background is as a programmer, is I made my own little app that I made it specifically to play well with N1MM, so I don't interfere with what the logging software is trying to do. And I was able to make it so that you could split the COM port and share my software with the N1MM. And this is what that app looks like. I have given this to some other people to try out in different things. It handles just a couple different radios, but it is kind of handy to use it. As you see, it just provides the basic controls that you need for operating basic stuff. They say you can't do all the, um, I'm saying the equalizers for the microphones and stuff like that. I don't provide for that. They just give you a basic gain, pitch, noise reduction stuff, monitors, mic gain, and some VFO controls that N1MM doesn't actually do very well, but it works, but it's not as convenient as being able to select which one you want to click on, and moving VFO A to B back and forth are not that easy to do with N1MM. Amp control was another problem. ACOM provides some basic stuff, but it's not that useful, not very friendly for users. ACOM Director is a third-party app that's open source, which is what I started with. Again, since I program, I took the open source, simplified it a bit. He did some things that I didn't really need, which made it a little bit unstable at times. So I simplified that, made it just work right on one desktop instead of trying to network it and all that. So the controls and things on there are from the ACOM Director software, but a lot of what behind it is my stuff. It doesn't let you do things like tuning the amp. The auto tune I have to do locally, but it does interface with the Green Heron software, which the ACOM Director didn't. So like I switch on 160 meters from an inverted L to an inverted V, the tuning on the ACOM is much different. So the Green Heron sends a message to the ACOM control app, and it'll switch the tuning over to the different antenna settings. For the non-computer controlled amp, the operators were kind of dismayed that they couldn't see how much power they were putting out. So everybody likes to see the meters jumping around, unless you're doing QRP like our previous presenter there. But what I found is on, I think it was just on Amazon, I found these stupid little boards. They're just a USB board with A to D converter on it, and they provide 8 or 10 inputs. You build your own resistor network to divide the voltages down, and it takes just a little bit of code to read the values. I got a way to calibrate things and use the basic same display as the ACOM, so everybody's happy to see the bars that are light up as you put on the power. A little bit about networking. Obviously, you got a bunch of computers here in the shack. I used to really enjoy these guys that call up and try and scam you into getting your computer repaired, or you cleaning the virus off of your computer. They call you up and try and get you to join an app sharing or a desktop sharing thing, and they start asking, well, you can connect your computer to this. I said, no, which computer? There's only like 10 of them here in the shack, so it gets to be funny sometimes. But the routing on it, there's basically 3 different ways that you can connect up the computers in the shack like this. When I started out, we used a basic wired network, 10 base 2 even. It was the old 75 ohm coax connections from computer to computer, and daisy chained all the way around the shack. Unfortunately, you learned real quick that those things are very prone to lightning damage. It's the only thing in the shack that I've really had damaged by lightning outside is the old wired network cards. So very quickly, as soon as it was available, we started to convert over to wireless. First the 2 gigahertz, now the 5 gigahertz. Much better. It's very easy to install, no wires. You do have to do a little setup on it, but out here in the open, there's no problem with neighbors or any of that stuff. So my network is a very basic open network that I have had a neighbor across the street from me that had a grandkid visiting, figured out they could use my network, but that hasn't been a problem. And the newer one, it's actually been available for quite a while, is optical networks. It's like the wire, but you got to run a wire to every computer and back to a router or switch. But it's not prone to damage from lightning or RF problems. I've thought about that, but the wireless is working just fine for us. Switches and hubs, you can get them to extend the routers. Most of the routers these days only have a couple of Ethernet ports that you can plug things into. But if you want to expand a wired network, you can get switches or hubs. I prefer switches because they keep the traffic separate between the computers. They don't share the same links, so everybody can't see everybody else's data. It makes it a little better to avoid collisions and that when you've got a busy network. LAN, internet, everybody should pretty much understand these days. It just depends on which side of the router is. The one thing that I do want to point out is if you're having trouble that's outside your network, it helps to be able to get somebody, a neighborhood guru or whatever, to come and test with you and then point out to the ISP exactly where the problems are and things like that. I've had to go back and forth with different ISPs for years trying to keep the bandwidth up in here, anything from Verizon's ISDN or DSL, and sometimes I've had to go up 2 or 3 levels above the regular support desk, just because if you're not getting what you're supposed to get, you got to keep pushing on it. I even had to do that with the recent switch from DSL to fiber internet. They brought the town of Peru here was Spectrum's first town wired with fiber from ground up. We had nothing in town except DSL, and Spectrum gave us a deal to come in and put fiber in for everybody, fiber to the house. So I've got a fiber that comes into the shack, has their modem and their router in here, and then my router. It took a week. I bet it was a good week from the time they physically connected the fiber to when they got everything working for me, because I was another of their first test cases because I wanted a static IP address, and that took them a week and 4 or 5 visits from techs here and supports from various networking centers of Spectrum to actually figure out how to do it, which was kind of kind of funny to watch, but it got annoying after a while. Things to look for with network services. Of course, speed is one big one you've got to get. With DSL up here, I was able to run just one desktop remotely. The amount of data needed, and especially when you got all the moving things on the screen, the Spectrum display, RTTY decoders, with waterfalls and that all moving around at the same time, it pushes up the amount of data that the remote desktop software has to stream out. Another big one is latency. How long does it take to get from my desktop to your desktop so you can actually see the screen update? Normal delays here we see going out to the network or out to the internet to somewhere else, and on the fiber now is 25 to 50 milliseconds, which is pretty good. And when it starts getting up to 100 milliseconds, you start to notice the delay in the audio and the response to typing and clicking on things, which it's possible to operate, with 100, even 200 millisecond delay if you can just know that something's happening. What's worse is if you have jitter in the circuit, which is how the latency changes over short periods. An example of that, you look at this, the left side is the ping command. The ping sends a little packet of data from your computer to another computer and back, and measures how long it takes. uh, 15, 20, 30 milliseconds in a nice stream like that, where it's consistent, is good. You get something like on the right side, which was a test I set up and I intentionally made it bad in the shack, has starting out, 300, 170, 180, and it goes up and down and back and forth several times. That causes problems with especially audio streaming, because the audio requires that packets of the audio show up at a regular interval so it can put them back together and give them to the listener. And if it's doing stuff like this, it makes it very hard for the software, and that's where you start getting some buffering or gaps in the audio or dropouts. Uh, Very annoying when you're trying to operate something. And if you're going to be doing anything like this, the ping command it's available in all versions of Windows going way back. Linux, all systems have that as a basic network thing. You may have to install an optional piece or something to get it, but it's available, with Windows. Uh, and besides using it to test the network, it's also a handy thing if you're having problems with slow connections, particularly loading a web page or starting a streaming audio or something. You can set up a ping that I like to use, like Google.com or 1.1.1.1, Google's DNS server or stuff like that, and just set a continuous ping up and just let it keep the connection open. Um, it can help quite a bit, especially when you're going with Wi-Fi or out over a slower DSL network, something like that. Running a ping continuously keeps all the circuits active and makes things work a little bit smoother. Remote access software. This is one that we hunted for probably weeks, trying to find something that was reasonable. The first thing, of course, with Windows is the remote desktop connection. We found very quickly that the remote desktop is horrible. Um, Not only is it slow, it requires ports to be forwarded and opened, and um, it's really a mess. And it also breaks audio devices. If you have speakers set up to play on your desktop, they go away. You have to redirect them to the remote desktop connection, and it's not possible really to use it for remote operating. TeamViewer was the first one we went with. That was good. It gave you the full desktop, gave you the motion, until they decided they wanted to make money and started forcing everybody to buy licenses instead of using the free version. AnyDesk is one we're using now that's starting to go the same way TeamViewer went. They're making nag screens trying to get you to buy licenses. So we're moving away now. And why didn't I put it there? It's probably on the next screen. Yeah. RustDesk is the one we're using and going to now. It's an open source program. You can also host your own server for it instead of having to use some third party or the company's specific servers. So you can host it, you can make backup servers, uh, do that all yourself. It has good desktop displays, stereo audio, which not is fairly rare for other things. And I say you can do it yourself. So it's really nice to be able to do that now. The audio, besides the audio on Rust Desk is, at the moment, it's only one way. You can listen to the remote computer you're connected to, but it's not very good for setting up a microphone to send your audio to the remote station. Um, we have used things like Skype. That's odd. It had some weird effects, but it worked at least to get us started. Mumble is, again, it's an open source piece of software designed by and for gamers playing uh, real-time games on the internet. It's got good fast response. It has a text chat feature that we use quite a bit, and a few other nice things that you can control and configure it for different applications. Again, Murmur is the server side of it, so you can host it yourself. I have my own Murmur server set up here, and that's where uh, we pass all the audio through. Again, it's better because you don't have to worry about some remote service going down, and you can do it all yourself. I'm also working on my own custom app. Uh, it's working, but I'm having trouble with some users being able not to connect to it, which I haven't figured out yet. But we'll probably stay with Mumble and maybe use my custom app some other time. Uh, the logging, the way to connect N1MM for the desktop is good. It controls the radios. Will send data CW commands to the WinKeyers or other uh, serial control lines. We used for a long time. I had Rig Blaster Pros that generated the CW, the push to talk, passed through the rig control, isolated all the audio. I've gotten rid of those since then, gone to the WinKeyers instead of the passing through the Rig Blaster. It takes a lot of the load off N1MM because it doesn't have to do the high-speed timing to generate CW. WK Remote is a piece of software that works with the WinKeyers, so you can set up paddles remotely. It works. I don't like the sound of the spacing things it does to it because of how it passes the data back and forth. It works, but it's not easy, and again requires a firewall hole to get the connection in from outside. Remote ham radio stuff. I've seen it, but I've not had any reason to actually set it up because again, that violates my no hardware premise for setting up these systems. Now, what's this look like to a user? This is what everybody outside would come in to see. This is a setup for doing FT8 using WSJTX, like you would see on the desktop. This happens to be my VHF station, just sitting there monitoring and not seeing much data. Because I've got this set up so that we can actually do multi contests. Not everybody is a guru and knows how to set this stuff up, so I've done a lot of writing on my website about how to install the software, tips on tuning it, how to make the connections, how to disconnect from the system. Um, so you get the user. This is one of the web pages. How to do stuff, links to how to do SO2R, controlling the ACOM, controlling the radios, some tips on using N1MM to make it work better. and notes on the other pieces of software too. And again, if you go to my website, you can't find some of these pages because they're only available to users that have accounts on my web server, because they have passwords for the stations and things like that buried in them. Before connecting to start a session, I've got this web page that gets updated automatically with the status of the HF or the VHF station. In this case, saying that K1MK is using it for the RTTY Roundup today, which isn't today, of course, but that's another thing. I'll have the NAQP RTTY going on here this afternoon. A couple guys coming over. On this page, I put notes, things that you got to remember to do, warnings about not installing stuff, or what the hardware status is, whether rotors are broke or antennas or something like that. And down at the bottom, there's links to those pages with more information, how to set up the software, how to connect and disconnect and all that. So a user gets ready to connect. They first, I tell them they should check this page and make sure that it's not busy. When the user logs out, when they close their log, this gets changed to available. I can also say maintenance or shutdown, or if I'm working on hardware or something, that to tell them don't connect now. This is AnyDesk. It gets basically the same thing as in RustDesk, or we're used to with TeamViewer. Down at the bottom, I've got different connections for different stations for multi operations. You just pick the one you want, click on it, and it opens up the desktop, and you see something like this, which again, I leave the status page up there so that everybody's reminded to read it when they first connect. And then there's the other tools. There's Mumble over on the right side, which has the text messaging on the left, the various stations that are on the right side, and you connect to whichever channel you want, the SO2R channel or the VHF or the single band stations for the bigger contests. There's a radio control down there, and then the amp control. I always set them up in the same places. Users can move them after they want, but I put them back every time somebody logs out. And on the left side are shortcuts for the operators that have accounts and logs on this computer to be able to access it. So when user goes and double clicks on their shortcut on the left side like that, the logger opens up to whatever their screen arrangement was when they shut down the last time. So this is showing a basic setup of N1MM, the spectrum display for it, and again, the three tools down on the bottom right side, and the green heron stuff brings up on the top. And operating is pretty much just like sitting at your own computer, except you can't touch the radio, which is how I tested a lot of stuff. Is I just say, okay, I got to do this, I want to do that. Can I do it through N1MM? Do I have to add it to the radio control app? Am I not seeing the power, or am I not seeing something I want to see? And that's all done through these various pieces of software. And of course, another advantage of this, with having everything right on the desktop, the remote users that are coming into it don't have to know how to set up the hardware. I have it all set up. They just need to know how to talk to it through the various pieces of software on the desktop. And we've been able to, get new users, anybody that's got any experience with remote operating can get on this and operate pretty much the same day. It may take a little bit of experience on how to access some of the things, where the tools are, what to get to, but uh, they can sit down and pretty much be ready to go within an hour or two of getting it set up. The biggest problems we have is setting uh, the mic audio coming in. That's probably the hardest part of it, is getting the audio set up, because we learned you really need to use a headset remotely. You can't have uh, a speaker uh, blasting your monitor or the received audio out, because it's going to start tripping the Vox uh, or making echoes or doing odd things. So I get all the users that are going to come in remotely to use a decent headset. The best ones we found are actually some of the gaming headsets that you get with some of the internet games, where it's meant to have meant to have a microphone, which a lot of computer headsets don't have. You can use the built-in microphone on the computer, but again, you're going to pick up room noise, maybe get echoes and other stuff like that. The desktop software, either AnyDesk or RustDesk, TeamViewer had it, is a file transfer system where you can pick files you've been running. You want to bring your log back home to print out QSL labels, or just archive it, or send logbook of the world files in. You can pick the user's call sign over here, go in, and you get all the directories that N1MM has. So you can upload uh, your own macro keys for CW. Uh, you can upload or download your WAV files for your voice recordings, or the log files, or the exported Cabrillo and ADIF files are all available for the individual users over here, and you can bring them back to your desktop, put them wherever you want. When the user goes to close the N1MM logger, that closes the by script running behind it, closes the logger, closes the green heron, resets locations of those three tools, and then you just close AnyDesk or Mumble, AnyDesk, your Mumble, RustDesk, whichever you're using, and everything goes away and it's ready for the next user. Now, this is supposed to have audio. I don't know. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but this was a recording of a contact with WB5N. Can you hear that on that side? No? I don't know.
No, we can't hear it on this end.
Yeah. That's a Zoom thing. It plays here off my speakers, but I can't pick it up to send it out. But this is how it would look to somebody just sitting at their remote station operating this and listening. Who was it? It was W3MLJ? No, this was me doing that. His mic and speaker are muted, so it had to be me. That's where you can see who's connected and listening. You can have multiple users listening at the same time to any of the stations. You just want to make sure that you mute your microphone if it's a voice or digital mode. but otherwise you can listen and hear what the operators are doing online. We have found it's not so great if you have two users connected to the desktop software at the same time. We've had troubles with any desk locking up the mouse or the keyboard for for one or the other, or my local keyboard, because you get a conflict in who's doing what on the desktop. But the audio is shareable and can be interesting sometimes just to listen to what's going on. Oop, no, it's playing it again. Stop that. Okay. You got questions? Anything anybody wants more about? Of course, I say this presentation will be on my website, updated on the website by this afternoon. I have a slightly older version, which most of the same stuff in it is on there now. And you can also see let me see. Stop that. Close that. Thank you. Okay. Where do I go to share? Okay. 2, 3. Okay. See the big fish now?
We don't have a fish on this end.
No fish. Okay. Oh, okay. I gotta click that first. Now you see the big fish.
Now we got him.
Where's my mouse? Oh, there it is. No, I don't want the Zoom page. I just pull up a couple of the things. If you have questions, pop in and ask them. This happens to be a schedule for this coming next weekend's ARRL sideband. I set this up on Google on their spreadsheets because when we got local operators, remote operators, you got to know who's coming and going at what time, and this lets the remote operators share, well, local or remote operators select the times they want to be on, lets them track what time local or UTC they have to be ready to connect. So this is just much easier than doing a paper schedule or another local spreadsheet I've done in the past to organize the operators.
I see at least one call sign in there that we recognize.
Yeah, I'd expect a few.
W1SJ especially.
Yeah.
That's Mitch for everybody who doesn't know.
Yeah. And let's see, of course, you know, the current remote station availability. Yes, there's still ice on the towers here. I've got most of the rotors turned back on, but some of the antennas, the SWR, is still pretty bad. I say on my main, the operator wiki I have here, this is open to the public. You can come in and look at the calendar of operations. You see just about every weekend I got something going on here, either here or remotely. And on the main, the maintenance blog, this is where you can see what I've been having to fix recently. Right now, there's 3 20-meter antennas that took a beating in the last ice and windstorms. And over here on the left column under the history, the Superstation Remote PDF, that's the presentation that I'm going to update here as soon as we're done. So it's available if you want to download it. We have run a couple special events out of here. Using the remote, the K1P is the town of Peru's 250th anniversary was run with both local and remote operators for 2 weeks. Everything was on for 2 weeks with operators coming and going all day. And that was the QSL card and a medal that I sent out to the stations that contacted us the most times and most bands and things like that. And besides that, I've got some other stuff. The maintenance blog, I said, the trail cam. I've got trail camera down by my pond. You can watch the animals come and go. Facebook, personal Facebook pages. You can ask questions, send me email. Yeah, the email's down at the bottom if you want to find it. Just go to k1ttt.net and all this stuff is available online. Did anybody there have any questions? We're coming up.
I was just going to ask you if you had any issues with your ARRL.net email account.
Not with mine. Some people, like W1TO, uses his to send me email, and it always goes to my spam filter. He hasn't figured out why. If he uses his personal Roadrunner email address or whatever it is, it comes through fine. But the ARRL one keeps getting caught in my spam filter. Even though I keep telling I keep telling Google Gmail account that he's not spam. Yeah, it still goes there. So,
does anyone in the room have any questions about operating remotely or contesting through K1TTT? Did everyone see the URL for the website that wanted to see it? wiki.k1ttt at dot.
It's just k1ttt.net is all you need.
k1ttt.net.
Yeah, and if you want a heavy read, Building the Superstation book is still available free for download, either from this Lulu site or from my website. I couldn't serve it from here until I got the fiber internet, which gives me a lot more bandwidth.
Yeah, we just had Fidium fiber put in our area. They're slowly working their routes through our area. My street in Milton, Vermont actually just got Fidium fiber. I'm trying to convince my wife to switch over. But she said, what we have isn't broken. We're not going to fix it.
Yeah.
I'm going to have you talk to.
I said it's worth it.
I say there's also I have a bunch of stuff that you can download. It's kind of a crude thing. You can look at our contest results all the way back to 1984, ARRL 10 meter, and then sweepstake sideband. The first contests I did up here, the year I moved up here. And of course, much more recently, like last year, the HF logs, all of the multi-ops or guest operator logs from here. And I also archive every year the remote logs for everybody that's operated remotely on their own, doing their own logs. I archive all of them every year so that you got a few files for that too, in case something gets lost. I guess we're pretty well done, aren't we?
Yeah, if there's no questions in the room, then
For me, have an in-person presenter. So
Whoops.
For that.
Okay.
Well, thank you very
I guess. Whoops. Are we still here?
yeah, it keeps switching back and forth between microphones.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll let you go, and who is next?
Oops. We have Arden Network.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you all for coming, and carry on.
Thank you.
Let's leave.